I want to exercise the privilege of sitting here by asking the very first question, then I'll come there. So, sir, the last 2-3 years, as the representative for this constituency, when people would reach out to us, asking for help in, say if they were stranded in some part of the country, some part of the world, whether it was for a medical emergency, whether it was for a quick process of a visa, and most importantly, during the Vande Bharat evacuation, or even during the Operation Ganga, there are more than 1,600 students just in Bangalore South who came back from Ukraine. Or even for that matter, I still remember there was a biking enthusiast who came up to us once and said, I want to do a biking expedition across 37 countries in Africa. I want some help navigating all these borders. I still remember, sir, whether it was during the Vande Bharat crisis or whether it was the Ukraine war, whether it was later, you or your office or even the consulates of Indian embassies and consuls abroad, they are a WhatsApp away. And this isn't an exaggeration. In many, even yesterday, a very prominent singer from Bangalore reached out to me at 1:30 in the night. I was on my way back from Gulbarga. I was in the train. He said, there's an emergency. I'm stuck in UK. He sends me a WhatsApp. We draft it again, put it on a letterhead, send it to the UK consul. And this morning, there's a message. He says, sir, thank you for this. Same set of officers, same set of people, the same set of rules. But there's such stark difference that we are seeing, and foreign policy is not something that was so distant now. It's something that is touching everybody. What has changed? Because you are a bureaucrat and now you are leading the ministry yourself.
What has changed? I get a paragraph, I get a sentence, or I get a word? I give it to you in a word.
An essay.
No, I'll give you a word.
Okay.
Modi. You know why? When Operation Ganga was going on, there was one particular city which was a huge problem. There were students stuck there. They were living in kind of air raid shelters. The Russians were just outside. There were Ukrainian forces there. This was in Ukraine, northern Ukraine. And there was a militia which was under nobody's control. And our students could actually, hear shells landing. And we'd keep telling them, saying, no, keep courage, we'll come, we'll get you, etc. One day, we actually got to a point where we got the buses there. The students came out, they sat in the buses, and the firing started. So they all rushed back. So we had a situation where, it was very difficult to actually, how do you motivate them? How do you give them the courage to come out? And we were sort of, we're talking to them really round the clock. It had been going on for a few days. So we came to the conclusion that the only way was that somebody would have to go. Somebody would have to go all the way to that place to tell them, saying, look, guys, you're okay, we are here, we'll take you out there. So I had a, shall I say, management challenge on my hand. How do you tell somebody, saying, why don't you go to a war? There's a little war going on there. Why don't you go there and risk your life and, do what is to be done? Now, the interesting thing was, while we were discussing it, two of my senior, and it had to be someone who spoke Russian, okay? So two of my senior officers told me, they said, we'll go. Now, one part of me said, okay, wonderful, they are solving my problem. One part of me said, okay, these are people, their families, God forbid something happens, what do I do? Now, they finally gave them the go-ahead to go. But I asked them, I said, okay, tell me, what motivated you? So they gave me that answer. They said, look, you have expectations of us. The country has expectations of us. But we also have a sense that the Prime Minister has set his heart on getting everybody out, and we collectively cannot fail him. So, when you have a strong leader, when you have someone who wears the commitment on their sleeve, where it's amazing how the rest of the society rises to that challenge. So when you ask me, same person. Now, sometimes it can be Okay, motivation, but also apply technology. Take passports. You know, if you had been MP a few terms earlier, you'd be writing to me every day about getting some passport for somebody. Today, you don't even know what's happening. And you should not know, because passports today are being issued as they should be. Faceless, contactless, you give your application in, and it comes out. Now, there again, how did it change? Here, actually, how to get a system to adopt technology, that itself is a huge challenge. So when I said Modi, it was not a smart answer, it was actually a real answer.
So, Bangalore has the youngest population in the country. It is the youngest city in the country with the largest number of millennials living here. Every time I encounter people, say at the airport in Delhi, airport in Bangalore, Chennai, wherever, one very big ask from people of Bangalore is that a city of the stature of Bangalore does not have the US consulate here. Many young techies must travel all the way to either Hyderabad or Chennai or Delhi, spend 2 days, 3 days for their visa appointments. They have to spend on the stay. While we contribute 40% of the country's IT revenue, why doesn't Bangalore have a US consulate that makes it so much easier? I had earlier met with you also, sir, and I only thought that it's appropriate to again request for this in front of such a young Bengaluru crowd.
Look, if I were, a resident of Bangalore, this makes perfect sense. If I was a decision maker in America, it also makes perfect sense. So why it has not happened, honestly, it's not something I can do as an Indian foreign minister. It's something which obviously my American counterparts have to decide. But I do think it's a very, very compelling case. It's honestly a no-brainer. And since you have put it to me so strongly and repeatedly, and I can see what a response it evokes out there, I assure you the next time I meet Mr. Blinken, I will hammer home that message with at least as much force as you have done.
Thank you so much, sir. Thousands and lakhs of Bengalurians will be very grateful if you could strike this deal for Bengaluru. We all know that you are very good at striking deals, and we are very confident and optimistic
so
that this is going to come through soon.
The next deal has been laid out.
Thank you so much. So I see a lot of hands going up. The gentleman in blue there, yes. Yeah, we'll come back. Let's try to get as many questions as possible. My only request is to please state your name and keep your question as brief as possible. Questions only, no suggestions, lectures, gyan, nothing. Questions only. Thank you.
Good afternoon, sir. My name is Naman Samtani. And my question is, how are we viewing the ongoing social and economic unrest in Pakistan, especially with groups like TTP wreaking havoc in the country recently, and the fact that it's a nuclear nation, and it can pose various threats if they fall in the wrong hands. So how do we look at the situation? Thank you.
Do I go question by question? Yeah, sure. Look, do you want to take a few first? Yeah, maybe I'll take about 3.
Okay, sure. Yeah, here. The one in the cap. Yeah. You want a pen?
Thank you so much. So I'm Manan.
Can you please keep the mic closer when you're speaking?
Sure.
It's a little hard.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Perfect. So I'm Manan, and actually my question to you was, you spoke very interestingly about Indians abroad. What's your view on people of Indian descent on foreign soil making statements that people with vested interests portray in a negative sense towards India? What is your view on that? Thank you.
Thank you. The girl there? Yeah.
So can I just
ask
one question? So my question to you would be, now you're considered as, I'm here. So now you're considered as a man who has, completely changed India's global standing and given India for the very first time a very strong and independent foreign policy. So how did this whole thing happen? Had you envisioned it before you entered the ministry, or had you had you planned it? Did you go situation by situation, or as you say in your book, The India Way, did you learn how to play masterminds and then play the hard ball?
Okay. First question on the TTP, what's happening in Pakistan. Look, what is happening today in Pakistan is something which was widely foreseen. The economics was foreseen, the terrorism problem was foreseen, all the other challenges, because these are things that they have done to themselves. The rest of the world kept warning them, and it's there out, in full public view. But if a country has a leadership, has institutions which are so short-sighted, who play with fire, who actually have created for themselves these Frankenstein monsters, then honestly they have nobody but themselves to thank for it. So, and then, what I find difficult is, oh, they have nuclear weapons, so as though we are supposed to do something about it. Well, they should have, they had nuclear weapons when they did all of this. So, to me, it's an object lesson of what happens when you follow the kind of policies which will lead you to exactly where they have come to today. On, people of Indian descent when they do or say negative things. Look, I want to say this. The bulk of the people, Indians, whatever passports they hold, I think are linked to India. They are deeply, still, in a way, attached to us. They take pride in our progress. They want to contribute to it. You have really, in a few places, honestly, a relatively small number of people. Now, you have a small number of people because sometimes they misuse it, to try and, for example, to say, oh, I'm being politically persecuted and therefore allow me to stay. So it's actually a visa game, which they are playing in the name of politics or human rights or whatever it is. So sometimes they are misused by adversaries, and that is actually what is happening today. Our point is this, that when this kind of thing happens, look, we are a democracy. We are the largest democracy. In my view, we are one of the oldest democracies. We have democratic traditions, in this society which go way, way back before most others. Nobody argues with the fact that there should be freedom of speech, that there should be civil liberties. But these should not be misused to, espouse radicalism, violence, terrorism. So there is a difference between having rights and misusing rights. And when other governments don't appreciate this difference, I think they need to be reminded, sometimes effectively. On the transformation question, look, life sometimes is an accident, honestly. So when people ask you for sort of career advice, etc., a lot of it is, things happen, you yourself don't know quite how it happened. I mean, in my case, to be honest with you, I'd had 40 years plus in the foreign service. After that, I joined the Tata Group. I was focused on something quite different. And honestly, I really think, other than Narendra Modi, I cannot think of anybody else who would have thought of making somebody like me, bringing me into politics. And but I would also say this, look, there are no politicians, I'm not like this guy. Huh? So there are no politicians in my family. I honestly never even thought about it. But I would say, if it wasn't a Modi, I'm not sure I would have made that change. I wouldn't have made that. To me, it was, look, I see someone who is genuinely giving everything he has to change this country, to change this society. And how can you not support this endeavor? So, and once you are in it, I'd say your kind of environment rubs off on you a little bit. So you learn to walk a little straighter and stand a little stronger. And so when I get pushed around, maybe I didn't like it before, but I was a bit more diplomatic about it. But I now feel, okay, guys, there's a different India I'm representing. I'm not going to take that. So I would say I'm also, in a way, reflecting your mood, your sense of the country. And maybe that's what's created what you call the transformation.
This, sir. Recently, we saw the turn of events happening in UK, United States, and Canada. The ambassador to UK, Vikram Doraiswamy, raised red flags on the securities, but the police over there were very complicit. They did not listen to him, and we all saw what happened.
Yeah, what's your question?
My question is that how can we improve the security of the people who are staying in these consulates and all the diaspora, and will it affect our FTA agreement with the United Kingdom?
Okay. in this particular case, in UK, whenever any country sends an embassy anywhere abroad, it is the obligation of the receiving country to provide the security for a diplomat to do their work. It is the obligation of the receiving country to ensure that the embassy or the high commission or the consulate, their premises are respected. Okay? These obligations were not met. That day when those, I would say vandals appeared before the high commission, what was our expectation was not there in terms of security for the high commission. So we've had conversations with the British government after that. I think the next time it happened, you saw things were a little bit different. But it is our expectation. As I said, many countries are very casual about it. They have a different view about their own security and a different view about other people's security. But I can tell you, as foreign minister, we are not going to accept these kinds of differential standards.
Yeah. Sure. Go ahead.
Good evening,
we
sir.
We have time for more questions, so chill. Yes.
Good evening, sir. Myself, Pratham Akhija, and I'm a student from International Relations. I have two small questions. That are we going to deal the same way with the events with the foreign countries, like attacking India using soft powers like BBC documentaries? And the second one is like, how are we going to deal with this separatist movement which are countering us from the out of our borders? Like right now, there is Khalistani movement happening in Europe. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll take this last one, sir. Yeah, go ahead.
Hello. Sir, my name is Karthik. I am an Ayurveda student. Sir, you said India were the first responders to the Turkey earthquake. But very few days after, they spoke in support of Kashmir in the UN. And even after the students who rescued from Ukraine, they were giving interviews after landing in Bengaluru airport. We saw they were speaking, our country did nothing. Most countries were doing more than our country did. Don't you think there's a lack of gratitude in people India are helping?
The first question, जो आपका जो सवाल जो था, look, today what is happening is because all of us are more globally exposed. We spend, you don't have to leave India or leave Bengaluru to actually today connect with the world. वो सब फोन में आ जाता है. So एक किस्म से ये एक contestation बन जाता है. Everybody tries to influence everybody. So when you say, previously we used to say nations compete. Today narratives compete. Cultures compete. And how does any country or any people or any culture exert influence is through that process. अब हम लोग जो हैं जितना हम अपनी संस्कृति परंपरा इतिहास को आगे बढ़ाएंगे, आप ये नहीं समझिए कि ऑटोमेटिकली दुनिया करेगी अरे वाह वाह वेरी गुड इंडिया इज राइजिंग अगेन, बिकॉज every country that rises is displacing somebody else's dominance. तो वो थोड़ा like Newton's third law, there is also a third law of politics, that for every action there is a reaction also. So other countries will try to show us down, will try to influence us. Why? I give you a very blunt example. Okay. Many people in the world were very comfortable how things were in India till 2014. Okay. 2014 things changed. They saw different people, different beliefs, different confidence. Suddenly what happened? People started saying, oh, democracy, there is something wrong. Today the court is not performing properly, election commission is not okay, press is being restricted. Everything happened after 2014 only. So why is that happening? Because you have people outside India who have an interest in people inside India. And when those people do not get electoral success, when they are seen today as less and less representing the reality of India, there is a attempt from outside to make out as though that is the normal, and somewhere India has started to deviate. Now if you look historically, this is the normal, what you are seeing today. This is actually in a 1,000-year history or 2,000, 5,000-year history. This is what we are. So my sense is the cultural competition is as much a part of there's political competition, economic competition, technology competition, but there's ideology competition and cultural competition is very much part of it. Today, the reality is, as you can see, people from inside this country are taking politics outside. People from outside the country are interfering in politics inside. This is what we are seeing. On the Ukraine issue, the culture, yes, I come back to the gentleman who asked this question, that, to the extent India is more Bharat, what is the change? The change in India, and I'm being very objective about it. If you look at the leadership of India, you look at the parliament of India, you look at the success stories of India, you look even at the cricket team of India, these are no longer only people from big cities and privileged backgrounds. That is actually proof of the success of our democracy. And today the more we have every part of India represented in as many activities and endeavors as possible, the more of Bharat will express itself. Prime Minister Modi keeps saying, and you are seeing this even with G20, India is not Delhi. This is a mindset which we, people living in Delhi, have to get out of. And one of the reasons we are doing G20 is precisely to get out of that mindset. But when I say Delhi, I just don't mean physically Delhi. There is also a culture. In Delhi, we call it Lutyens culture. The people who feel that, governments come, governments go, but we are there. We will decide what is right and wrong, what is, what should be, what are the views expressed in the media, who should be raised, who should be criticized. So how do you break the hold of a narrow elite on the largest country in the world? This, actually, people don't realize how much of a transformation Narendra Modi has actually brought about in this area. And on the soft power, the BBC kind of, again, these are all linked issues. There are, at the end of the day, what was the issue about? It was actually in the name of media freedom, doing a political hatchet job, which ignored very major Supreme Court pronouncements on a particular subject. And then you say, no, but I'm only doing media. Now, the same thing you are seeing, when this so-called Khalistani demonstrations come. You say, I'm doing freedom of expression. Now, freedom of expression doesn't extend to violence. It doesn't extend to somebody, today desecrating my national flag. That is not freedom of expression. So I think we need today, as a country, to be firm about it, to call out these exercises when they happen. I think we should not be, caught down because something is happening in London and something is happening in Canada, and therefore we have to accept it. If we have strong views, in my view, I tell people, you can have views about me, but I will have views about your views. So I will challenge you. If I see you factually wrong, if I see you selectively using facts, if I see you distorting reality, don't think diplomacy means I will shut up and put up. I will not. So this is today, I think, a confidence. We have reached that stage today to display that. Finally, this gratitude issue. I must say something in defense of the students who came back from Ukraine. They went, I cannot even describe to you what they went through. That gentleman out there knows. They all had to do more than 1,000 kilometers to get out of the country. They had to stay in camps. It was very cold out there. There was a conflict going on. I think in many cases, they were just so tired, so relieved. Somebody says in newspaper, so what do you think? I think at that stage, many of them, their exhaustion showed. I don't think they were ungrateful. I think that would be, to me, I think most of them do appreciate, and I can tell you, one of the things which Prime Minister did, he asked the families, that gentleman would verify it for me. Do you know, government sent to every family of every student someone out there to say, look, don't worry, Prime Minister will bring back your son or daughter. Every family in the country was sent. So people appreciated it, the families appreciated it. I think people who went through stress, we should also understand how they put up it. But I also want to say this. See, when you send somebody an earthquake, you send a team for earthquake, or our own children or citizens are stuck. You don't do it because you want gratitude. You do it because it's your responsibility. How they react, how another country reacts, the world will judge them. The world will judge, at the end of the day, if somebody is grateful, somebody is appreciative, world will have some view of them. Somebody is not so, the world will have a different view of them. But I should not say I'm doing it because, in return he will say nice things about me. That's not the reason I went there. I went there because people were dying and we had the capability of saving lives. And this is something today which is part of our tradition, that India has always helped the world when the world is in distress. Today, as a bigger country, as the largest country in the world, 5th largest economy in the world, with the kind of leadership and confidence that we have, today that is the thing which is the right thing to do.
Good evening, sir.
Every passing round, the number of hands are just going up. Let's,
Yeah.
the guy
So,
in the maroon.
good evening, sir. My name is Vishnu, and I'm a student of Sir, here, right side. Yeah. So, greetings, sir. My name is Vishnu, and I'm a student of International Studies from Christ University. And my question is that, sir, this side. Yeah. So, India aims to become a $5 trillion economy by the end of this decade, and Africa could play a pivotal role in this. But with the Chinese interests and investments looming around, what do you think would be the best strategy to approach African countries, given that they are abundantly blessed with natural resources? Would it be through trade, aid, or foreign direct investment?
Yeah, I'm Parimal and I'm studying international studies. So my question is, how is India bridging the gap between itself and China when it comes to space diplomacy?
Can you please
Just repeat that once?
Yeah, how is India bridging the gap between itself and China when it comes to space diplomacy? Space diplomacy.
So myself is Vishwas, so I'm a participant from Youth Can Lead. So I wanted to ask you, seeing the growth of Indians' progress, so our passport ranking, according to you, when we can reach within top 10 ranking? And one more question is, what's your comment on World Happiness Index on India? Thank you.
So,
I knew somebody was going to ask me that question. Yeah. One more and last one.
So the last question.
Give it to a lady. Lady. I want gender.
Let's give this to a girl.
Somewhere.
Hello.
Sure, here.
Hello, sir. My name is Nistala. So India has faced a lot of hypocrisy from a lot of countries since independence. So how far do we forgive and forget in this ever-changing geopolitics? And how do we make these decisions? Thank you.
Next time, guys. There's always a next time. Thank you.
So, look, where Africa is concerned, today, African countries, they've had a really rough time the last 4 or 5 years. Most of them were last receivers of vaccines. In many cases, the rates of vaccination were less. They went through a lot of travel issues. Their economies were very badly hit. Then came Ukraine. They took a hit on oil prices, on food availability, on wheat shortages. So their situation today is really, really worrisome. Therefore, what Prime Minister felt was, when we are doing our G20 chairmanship, presidency, we should actually talk to all the countries of the South and get their concerns and speak for them. And we did that exercise. We actually spent time, Prime Minister himself and about 4 or 5 ministers, and we actually engaged 125 countries, of which 54 of them were African. Today, Africa wants to go more digital. Africa wants to go more green. Africa has, like the rest of the world, developed greater awareness about health. I think there are ways by which our capabilities and our experiences can help them. What we should do is to actually support the growth of entrepreneurship, create, the infrastructure, the businesses there. It should not be the fate of Africa to become like a resource source for the world. There are 1 billion people who live out there. They are demographically younger than any other continent. So their talent also must be given a chance to express itself. And I think India would do its duty by providing options and alternatives. If you put options and alternatives on the table, I'm confident many people will exercise or choose some of them. Regarding space diplomacy, this is a new domain or newer domain. There are a lot of ongoing discussions about it at a multilateral level. Just like in the 60s, 50s and 60s, they were on nuclear issues. Today, space is an area really where different countries have competing interests. But space diplomacy is also can be bilateral. You know, we have done launches for other countries. We have helped other countries make satellites or made them, customized it for them. We have done it for some of our neighbors. We did a launch for Bhutan. There are other countries who want today to utilize our capabilities out there. And we also, in fact, help countries or partner with countries in ensuring that their own satellite fabrication capabilities increase. So space is an area where there will be much more activity. To me, like chips, you know, cyber, chips, space, these are today the new domains really of international cooperation and also of international competition. In terms of passport, you know, we are working at it. We of course are hoping to launch sometime in the coming months a pilot project for the e-passport. But how do you strengthen the acceptance of the passport, the reputation of the passport? You know, that will take time because the way the index is made, you know, the index itself is made in a way in which there's an inbuilt, I would say, bias in the index. I would not be too hung up on that hierarchy. I would be much more focused today that do we have, you know, easy visa arrangements? When we travel abroad, do you have the backup of your government? When you go for employment somewhere, do you have the same rights as the people who are working out there? If you are a student, do you have the ability to work alongside your studies? Because for a lot of students, that is very important. So if we do all that, you know, my sense is it would feed into the narrative of the contributing Indian in the global economy. I would rather go for a branding of the Indian rather than a hierarchy of the passport. To me, that is the right way to go. You know, on the happiness index thing, I think you should actually tell everybody to come to Bangalore. I mean, you can see which is the world's happiest place, particularly on a Friday night. So you know, I don't know how these guys make up those indexes, okay? But I can only tell you one thing. A Singaporean friend of mine once told me, he said every time he travels out, he said, you know, I just have to go to some place and look at the faces of people. That is my happiness index. And his sense was people in Europe didn't look that happy. People to him in India looked very happy. Now, I'm not necessarily saying I'll make an index out of it, but look, these are all mind games which people play. You know. And finally, the forgive and forget. Do you forgive and forget? You should never forget. It's a big mistake. You know, if you forget, you are not learning the lessons from it. If you forgive, it depends what you are forgiving. Some things I would never forgive. You know, if somebody attacked my city, if somebody violated my sovereignty, I would never forgive it. And I would never forget it. So forgive and forget is nice in personal relations. I think nations need to have longer and better memories.